The very next day was my wife's surprise birthday party. I was excited because I had actually succeeded in planning a surprise party for her. She had said she never had one, because she always accidentally discovered the plans. I guess the last time her parents tried to throw her one was when she was 16. She was turning 27 now, and I was 25. I stayed at home with our 4-year-old son while she went to work. I was out running errands for birthday party supplies when I drove through her work parking lot to find her car. My plan was to leave a rose and a romantic note on it, giving her instructions to meet me at a specific address at a specific time tomorrow. Of course, she would come home to me after work and ask about the note, but the spontaneity of the surprise was what I was aiming for. I circled the parking lot several times before I caught a glimpse of her car in the far corner of the lot on the back side of the building. I got close enough to it to see movement inside, which was strange. So I parked as close as I could to her car and zoomed in with my phone's camera. I started recording the movement in the car and caught multiple glimpses of her, topless, with another man. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They were having sex in the company parking lot. I looked around for any security cameras and noticed they were all just out of range from my wife's car. She had parked there intentionally. How many times had she done this? I felt like I was going insane, but our son was in the back seat of my car. I had to play it cool, stay strong, and go home to come up with a plan. At home, I typed out a text to the guest list for the surprise party. This list included all of our friends and family. Surprisingly, none of my wife's co-workers. She probably intended to keep her family life separate from her work life for a reason. The text explained that I had discovered just that day that my wife was having an affair. The party would still go on, but instead of yelling surprise, we would yell something else. And instead of the other activities I had planned, we would do something different. Everyone was very sympathetic and agreed to go along with my plan. Even my wife's mom called to apologize on her daughter's behalf, telling me I didn't deserve this betrayal and pain. I broke down crying on the phone with her. When my wife arrived home, I pretended everything was fine. It was incredibly hard, but I knew tomorrow would be everything I needed it to be. The next morning, I spoke to my lawyer and picked up the divorce papers. I also arranged with the venue to use their video projector. Then I went back to my wife's work and left the note on her car, without the rose. She didn't deserve a rose. I went back home and waited. As anxious and sad as I was, I knew the end of my marriage wasn't the end of the world, especially since she had proven herself to be a cheater. My wife confirmed she received the note by texting me. I took our son to my mom's house and gave him a hug. The worst part of the divorce would be the impact it would have on him. When I arrived at the venue, guests were already arriving and apologizing to me. They assured me they would do anything to help support me through this heartbreak. We got everything set up to make sure it would be one hell of a show. When my wife walked in, the lights went out and we all held our breath. As soon as she stepped inside, the lights came back on, and everyone jumped out yelling, "Hey, cheater!" I allowed a few moments of awkward silence, while my wife's brain processed the fact that everyone had just called her a cheater. She looked offended, scared, and confused. Then I hit play on the projector. The video showed her car rocking back and forth, with glimpses of her topless self. Her jaw dropped, and she covered her mouth with her hands. She looked around the room, noticing all her friends and family staring at her in disapproval. The guests began to leave, and I thought it was a good time for me to go too. I left my wife there. I got home 40 minutes before her. Earlier that morning, I had taken her house key, so she wouldn't be able to get in. All of her belongings were waiting for her on the front porch. She arrived home only to be shocked all over again. She broke down crying. I spoke to her from the second-story window, telling her to get her stuff and leave because she wasn't my wife anymore. She just flipped me off while crying and called someone. 10 minutes later, it looked like the man she had cheated with was helping her take her stuff, maybe to his house. I knew who my wife's boss was, so I emailed him the video I had recorded. The next morning, I got a reply. He had been able to use security cameras to identify who had walked to and from the car with my wife, and they would both be fired immediately. Of course, it didn't take long before my wife called me. She cussed me out and called me names, but that didn't bother me. I knew she was going to realize just how badly she had messed up. Throughout the divorce process and afterward, she begged and pleaded with me to stop changing our lives. Eventually, I stopped responding to her because she knew she was the one who did this to us. I haven't heard from her in a while. My main focus will always be my son. I have hope that I'll find a good woman for myself and a good mother figure for him. My reaction. Wow, OP. That is a terrible thing to go through. You went to surprise your wife at her job, only to uncover a disturbing secret. She wasn't considering anyone or anything but herself when she chose to cheat on you. As humans, we face temptation nearly every day. The wisest of us can resist that temptation and stay focused on the people who matter most. It's not hard to think about the consequences of your actions before making a decision, and never assume that a secret will stay a secret. I have hope that you'll find a woman capable of honest communication and selflessness. OP, you made very wise decisions and exercised self-control in a situation where most people would have freaked out. I wish you the best of luck in life moving forward. Now, let's get into today's second story. My wife didn't usually go out to lunch with friends. I would have supported it, but she was a little socially awkward, so most of her friends were online. She had one best friend that we both knew well, named Leah. She'd see her as often as possible, but Leah lived 45 minutes away. We had an open phone and computer policy between us, but my wife was such a sweet little angel that I never felt the need to check either. She was on her phone a lot, but usually still interactive with me, and made it clear that giving me her time and attention was a priority. That started to change when she began staying in the bathroom longer, sometimes even locking the door. She seemed irritated if I asked for anything while she was absorbed in one of her electronic devices. I became officially suspicious when she asked if she could go out to lunch with a new female friend. She even showed me some messages between them, but only a few about meeting up. Sure, the name was programmed as a girl's name, but how did I know who it really was? How did my wife even know who it really was? I asked her to call this girl so I could say hi, but she said she couldn't right then because the friend was at work. She assured me they talked on the phone plenty of times when I was at work, but that was more unnerving than comforting. When the day came for her to meet this girl for lunch, my wife became even more insistent that she was going and that I needed to trust her. After she left in her little old car, I got into my car and followed her using our family location app, but she turned it off after 13 minutes of driving. That meant she didn't want me to know where she was, which was disheartening. I drove up and down the street where she had turned it off. It was full of restaurants and shopping. After searching for about 8 minutes, I was about to give up because I felt like she could be spying on me at that point, and I'd have no idea. Then I saw her car in the Applebee's parking lot. I parked at a distance and put on my prop hat, sunglasses, and scarf before going into the restaurant. Before the hostess even greeted me, I saw them, my wife and Leah's live-in boyfriend. So that's why she didn't just lie and say she was meeting Leah. I couldn't believe it. She was seeing another man behind my back, and it was her best friend's boyfriend. Why the hell did she feel the need to do this? My heart was pounding, and I'm sure my face was red. When the hostess tried to seat me, I told her I wouldn't be staying after all. I snuck over to where I could get a good picture of them, then went back to my car. I waited, determined and eager to catch them in whatever they were doing. My wife got into Leah's boyfriend's car, and I followed them at a distance to Leah's house. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and my nauseating suspicions only grew. They went into the house, and I sat in the car, wondering what I should do. My wife didn't make very much money, but her parents would send her pretty nice sums each month, for various reasons. I decided that if I caught her cheating on me, I would tell her parents. They had very high expectations for their daughter, which definitely didn't involve her cheating or getting divorced. I then decided to go inside. The front door was locked, but it wasn't hard to find a spare key. Unlocking it was louder than I wanted, and I heard some movement as the door opened. I entered and closed it behind me, hoping they thought it was Leah returning home unexpectedly. The last noise I heard sounded like it came from the kitchen, so I slowly walked there, keeping my eyes peeled. When I got there, no one was there, but there was a door leading to the basement. I didn't open it, I just locked it. If they were down there, they'd be found eventually. I searched the rest of the house and didn't find them, so they were definitely stuck in the basement. I left the house, locked it, and returned the key before driving home. Before I even got home, Leah called me. She said she had just found my wife and her boyfriend in the basement together. I played dumb. She was in disbelief, and I could hear them all arguing and trying to explain things. I apologized to Leah, told her I was driving, and asked her to call me back when she figured out what was going on. She called me back an hour later. She was crying as she explained that she had taken her boyfriend's phone and checked his messages. There were texts going back 5 months between my wife and him, and it was clear that their relationship was much more than just friends. They had been having sex as early as 4 months ago, because that was the first time it was mentioned in the texts. They spoke about when Leah or I would go to work and how lonely they were. They complained that they needed more attention and could handle more than one partner. I was furious. I apologized to Leah again for her having to go through this with me. I asked her to send me screenshots of what she had because these cheaters needed to be called out. Once I got the screenshots from Leah and sent them to my wife's parents. I also posted them on Facebook, tagging my wife. Leah did the same, tagging her boyfriend. Social media exploded with hate comments toward both of them, and they were shunned. 3 hours later, my wife called me, still not home, likely because she had a feeling I knew what she was doing. She sounded sad as she apologized to me, asking what she could do to make things better. I told her there was nothing she could do. I had already informed her parents and planned on filing for divorce. She wailed and started crying when I said that. Just then, her mother called her on the other line, and she hung up on me to answer it. When she called me back, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. It felt good to hear her suffering, experiencing the same emotional torment she had caused me. She tried to tell me that she didn't have anyone now, and I asked her how that was my problem. Then, she tried several different tactics to get me to take her back or show her some mercy, even going so far as to offer me a hall pass to have with another woman. I declined and told her I'd be able to have with anyone I wanted now, because I was single. She tried contacting me every day throughout the divorce, but I ghosted her. I had proof of her cheating, so I kept the house and didn't have to pay her a dime in alimony. To wrap up my story, Leah and I have become good friends after going through this, and I wanted to share this story in hopes of helping other people cope with sudden change and unfaithfulness. My reaction. Ow, OP. I'm so sorry your wife went behind your back like that, especially with her best friend's boyfriend. I believe you made very smart and decisive moves to uncover the truth and expose their secret. I'm also glad you were able to get the evidence you needed to help your case in the divorce. I know you're going to keep moving forward and live a good, fulfilling life. In all relationships, trust and communication are fundamentally important. Add selflessness and consideration for others, and you'll ensure a wonderful relationship. Thank you for sharing your story with our viewers. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If you have a story you'd like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, don't hesitate to contact me. Take care. Cheating Secrets Podcast.